Hello and welcome to Thomas Geiger Car. Today with the brand new Lotus Eletre. And this car is brand new for several reasons. It's not only the first fully electric Lotus ever and the first Lotus that is not built in Hethel in the UK, but here in Wuhan in China. No, it's also the first SUV of Lotus. After all the other sports car brands, beginning from Porsche and ending up with Ferrari, has decided the niche of sports cars is too small to survive and started building SUVs, Lotus is now following that path, but with a fully electric vehicle. If you want to know how this car competes against classic conventional SUVs on the luxury sporty sides like an Aston Martin DBX, like a Lamborghini Urus or a Porsche Cayenne, join me on my first test drive and I'll tell you more about it. But before we start behind the wheel, let's have a short walk around the vehicle and look at dimensions and design. When we think about Lotus, the first car that comes into my mind is the Elise, a very nimble, very tiny sports car, almost a toy car for boys. Other people might think at Esprit and Elan that we know from the James Bond movies, but something that definitely does not come into our mind is a huge vehicle of 2.5 tons, more than 5 meters in length, and a wheelbase of more than 3 meters, and definitely not a car with 4 doors. But to my taste, the Lotus designers has done a tremendous job sticking this car to the tradition. Yes, it is a new shape, but it's still the old styling. We have lots of aerodynamic clues giving the car, reducing the drag, giving it more efficiency and making it just look very cool. If you look into here, you can see I can reach my hand and reach the tires, so the air goes through. The air goes through the bonnet and we have the same at the back. Very, very aero efficient, and to my taste, it's just right placed in between the traditional cars and the spaceships of the Generation E that we've seen already. So this car looks great, and wherever you show off, you will definitely be in the center of the attention. But it's not only aerodynamic that sticks to your eye when you look at the Eletre. No, there are some other details you usually don't see at other sports cars. Sensors like this. This car has 4 LiDAR sensors, lots of cameras, lots of radars, and is equipped to go autonomous one day. Not sure if I really want to be driven in a Lotus if I have the chance to drive on my own, but since this is not a sports car but an SUV, an everyday car, maybe I'll do the commute on autopilot and enjoy the landscape afterwards on a twisted country road. I don't know if you have ever driven a car like the Elise or at least tried to enter the vehicle. That is more than gymnastics. That is really tight, and it's magic to fold yourself behind the wheel, especially if you're a tall and quite big guy like I am. This is the first 4-door Lotus, the first proper 5-seater, and it is really comfortable. Not a surprise with a wheelbase than more than 3 meters. But Lotus is not only offering a bench like that, no, they're also having a 4-seater configuration with 2 bucket seats in the back, like the driver and the passenger has them. Not my taste, especially don't want to sit here whilst the driver is enjoying itself, but it is really cool and really good looking. And for the first time ever, you can also fold down the seats and you can haul a lot of luggage or big grocery shopping in a Lotus for the first time. So very versatile and still cool and luxurious. Lotus is stating the Eletre as the first ever hyper SUV, and they're claiming that not only because of the design, the driving specs and the powertrain, no, they're also talking about the hyper operation system, the UX, the user interface. That is more from the gaming industry than from the car industry, with graphics better than ever, with a huge center screen that is tiltable so you can see it from every angle, and with digital mirrors. That is really Chinese influence. If you remember that usually a normal radio was something very special for a Lotus Elise, for example, this is digital overkill, but executed in a very fine way. Also, material combinations, design of the interior, these metal things here with the ambience lighting really looking good and really looking different than the competition. I would not go into the posh Bentley direction with that, but if I can see that and see Porsche style, Audi style or Aston Martin style, I would know which box to tick. But most of all, this is still a sports and driver's car, and that's what we're gonna figure out next. They call it Hyper SUV, and they do it for a reason, and now we're figuring out that reason. It's two drivetrains that are available for the Eletre, 600 horsepower and 900 horsepower, translating to a top speed of 265 kilometers per hour and an acceleration in the best case of less than 3 seconds from 0 to 100. Always bear in mind, we're not talking about a super flat, super sports car. We're talking about a 2.5 ton SUV. And that acceleration comes with an absolute ease. Sometimes I'm really missing the sound and the vibration of an engine. On the other hand, it is really fascinating how this vehicle makes its way and how powerful it accelerates. And since it's a Lotus, it's also made for corners. Not as good as an Elise. You're sitting higher, higher center of gravity, more weight, more vehicle, but for an SUV like that, it is pretty agile. We have adaptive damping, we have a rear wheel steering, we have the intelligent all-wheel drive. That all helps to get the car around the corners pretty quick. Only thing is, if the tarmac is not the best and if the street is not very stable, the car really has some problems to get all its power on the road. So you better be careful once accelerating the first time, and you don't do it on a narrow test track like that, because then your Eletre experience can be over sooner than you expect. The fun is limited also due to the battery capacity. Lotus is not disclosing the figure yet, but they're aiming for roughly 600 kilometers of range. Definitely not obtainable once you're on a test track like that. Then it's much less. But Lotus is not only fast in driving, but also fast in charging. The maximum charging power is 350 kilowatts, which is quite above the average in the segment. So you charge for 400 kilometers in less than 20 minutes. Thanks for joining me on that first test drive with the new Lotus Eletre. It's a huge step for the brand, leaving the common grounds of nimble petrol sports cars, but I think it's a step in the right direction. The only way for the brand to survive into the future. And since the China connection is lowering the costs to a bare minimum, this car is also pretty cheap compared to the conventional competitors like the Porsches, the Lamborghinis or the Aston Martins. This is almost a bargain. Base model sells in Europe for less than 100,000 euros. The top spec model for not much more than 150,000 euros. That's not even Porsche Cayenne Turbo pricing. And here you get more horsepower and the better feeling because you're driving electric without emissions. There has been times when James Bond was driving Lotus. Now he's going Aston Martin. But since the talks are the next Bond might either be black or a woman, maybe it's time for a change in the vehicle as well. And this could well be the next Bond's car. Family usable, electric and fast as well. Thank you, 谢谢, 再见 and goodbye.